Hey, and welcome. This is our first session from our Stone Sizzle YouTube channel. And today we're going to be talking about rational equations. A rational equation, and I'm just reading that on the front on the screen, is an equation has a rational expression for one or more terms. So if you had to think about what a rational expression is, and I think a lot of you already know, something like that is a rational expression, is a numerator and a denominator. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to have at least one example, maybe two examples to show you different ways to solve or to show you the way to solve rational equations. For something you got to be very careful and remember when dealing with rational equations. Here's our first example. And the thing you have to remember is in a rational expression, we cannot have a particular number in the denominator. You might be thinking of what that number is right now, but it is 0. So we're not going to be able to have a variable. This x is not going to be able to be a value that is going to make this denominator 0. So you have to keep that in mind when solving these. So in this case, we know that 1, x could not equal 1 because it would make 0 in this denominator of this expression. So let's go about solving these. This is our first example, and we're going to solve this. And the way we solve rational equations is we need to multiply both sides of the equation by the least common denominator, or the LCD. So the least common denominator in this case, if you look here, here's the least common denominator. It's going to involve this one. It's the product of these two denominators. So our least common denominator in this case is going to be 3 times the quantity x minus 1. And we're going to multiply that least common denominator by each term. We're going to multiply by both sides of the equation or each term. So let's start. If you look, it's each term of this equation, including the other side, because remember, we have to keep it balanced, so whatever we do to one side of the equation, we must do the other. So if you look, this is the least common denominator that we're multiplying by everything. All right. So let's simplify that. If you look here, this and this are going to divide out, and we're going to be left with x minus 1, the quantity x minus 1, and the quantity 3x minus 1. This x minus 1, the quantity, is going to divide out with that. We're left with this 3 times 2x, which is 6x. Then over here we have nothing that can divide out, so we're going to be left with, and I'm going to multiply 3 and the x together to get 3x times x minus 1. We can do one more round of simplifying for this next one. We're going to use, what is that called over there? My favorite F acronym, FOIL. We get 3x squared minus x minus 3x plus 1 minus 6x equal to 3x squared minus 3x. Let's combine some like terms here. Alright, so we have our like terms. Looks like we have this guy, and this guy are our like terms on this side. So let's get them all together. So we have 3x squared. This is going to be minus 10x plus 1. And the other side is 3x squared minus 3x. So let's solve this equation. So let's get everything over to one side. So we're going to subtract this 3x squared from both sides. And we're also going to add this 3x. We'll do that in the next step. So we're left with negative 10x plus 1 equal to negative 3x, because that's 0 and that's 0. We're going to add 10x to both sides. So that we'll have x on this side. That's going to give us a 7x equal to 1, because this will be 0. And we solve for x. Divide both sides by 7. And we are left with a solution of x equal to 1/7 for this. The restriction of x equal negative 1 does not affect this result. And we could check this solution by plugging that 1/7 back into our original x and solve. And if you go about and do that, you will see that 1/7 is a correct solution. Now what would be great is if you pause the video for a minute and see if you could do this next one on your own. And then come back to the video when you're done and check your work. Okay, so this would be a great time to pause it, and I'll be here when you get back. Hopefully you're back now, and we're looking at this rational equation again with our rational expressions. We treat this the exact same way. We have to solve this by multiplying both sides of this equation by the LCD, least common denominator. And I'm hoping that you see that the least common denominator in this case is kind of easy to find because they're both the same, and it is the quantity x plus 1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do that, and I'm hoping you're checking your work as we do this. Even this too, we're multiplying it by. We have to keep the balance. We have to do to everything in the equation. So if you look, these divide out, and we're left with just the 3 here. We divide out here, and this is left with an x. And then here, we distribute this 2, and we get 2x plus 2. We combine our like terms, and it's like a simple equation from Algebra 1 that you may have seen. Subtract our 2 on this linear equation right here. We get 1 is equal to 3x. Divide both sides by 3 to get x is equal to 1/3. Now again, I was hoping you were thinking about, even though I didn't mention it, allude to the fact that we couldn't have a certain solution, a certain value of x would not work in this particular case, and that would be x is equal to -1, because that would make our denominator 0. So I'm hoping you were successful with this one and able to go. We're going to do one more. So if you want to advance the next slide and try our next one, that would be great. Here's the last example we're going to do in this video, and I'm hoping again you pause it, take the time to kind of try, and then come back and check your work. If you notice again, we are looking at this rational equation that we need to solve, and we're about ready to do this. So I'm hoping that you see the trend, you know what to do. We're going to multiply by the least common denominator, and I'm hoping you were able to identify that the least common denominator was the quantity x minus 2, and we are going to get right into it. So let's check your work, I hope. And there's a very special reason why I decided to do this particular example as part of this Stone Sizzle production. And again, even though this 2 is here by itself, we're still multiplying everything by that least common denominator. This divide out to give us 1. These divide out to give us 1, which is nice and convenient. Here, we distribute that. We get our 2x minus 4. Very similar to the last one, but there's something I want to point out about this one that I'm hoping that you will see. So we have combined our like terms here. We have 2x minus 2. We are going to subtract 2x from both sides. We're going to be left with a negative x equals a negative 2, which is really just x is equal to 2. Do you see anything strange or odd about this one? Well, the only proposed solution for this particular rational equation is x equals 2. However, the variable is restricted to real numbers except 2. So if x is equal to 2, then multiplying by x minus 2 right here, both sides of the equation in the first step, by 0, which is not valid. So in a situation like this, we say that the solution is the null set. And we can write it like that in set notation if we want. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this little video on solving rational equations. I hope you can learn from this and then bring your questions in the class with you next time we meet. John Stone out.